Hi dear students, a warm good morning to all of you. Welcome to one more session on microbiology, and today we'll be talking about oil spills and its bioremediation. We all know that oil spills often occur in the water bodies as a part of navigation which happens through the water bodies, or it might be due to the release of crude oil, offshore platforms, drilling rigs, also as well as when the spill of refined petroleum products happen. And we can find this oil spills in small level as films of oil on the water, or might be you can see large amount of oil spills as when accidents happen, like when ships tankers are being broken or being are ripped open, or when they are taking oil, drilling out oil in the rigs, might be there will be oil spills. And regardless of whatever be the cause, oil spill is something uh, which needs large amount of time as well as effort to be cleaned up. And you can see that when they are in the water bodies, they leave back lots of effects, like affecting the local industries, human health, marine ecosystems, the vegetation and the mangroves, all the marine life, causing damages to the beaches, marshlands, fragile marine ecosystems, etc. Now, coming to the local industries, sometimes there would be lots of industries depending upon tourism, fishing, swimming, sailing, etc. And so, when oil spill happens within a water body, it naturally affects the local industries. Coming to the human health, of course, the inhalation of the vapor, touching of the oil slicks, and consuming contaminated seafood would result. You can also get affected by neurological acute toxic effects, even the eye as well as the respiratory system, nausea, throat infections, etc., migraines, headaches. These all could result when the adjoining water bodies are being contaminated by oil spills. Nevertheless, you can see even in the case of vegetations, okay, the plants are getting harmed. Another feature which we can see, which of course the many of the living corals in the marine coasts are being getting depleted because the coast get contaminated by oil spills. Of course, I do not say the oil spill is the only reason. The global warming alone is also causing the death of the living corals, but oil spills also do contribute to them. And when the plants are getting coated with the oil, what happens? Their growth is in fact hampered, and all the food chains get affected from it. In the case of mangroves, mangroves they get oxygen through their roots, and when the roots itself are being clogged by oil, or when they are getting coated with oil, the oxygen supply itself will be depleted to the plants, and then long-term loss of the habitat happens. The marine life, of course, they get fully immersed with oil, and physical effects on the birds and the mammals is through smothering, where the oil coats the outside of their bodies, covering their feathers as well as the fur, and also many of the toxic compounds from the split oil can be ingested by the animals and directly in their prayer, and they will what as they breathe in itself, that will go inside. So the marine life also is getting affected as a part of the sea. These are some of the instances where the marine animals get affected. The aquatic plants, they are getting affected by as a result of the marine mammals, they are also vulnerable to oil spills because they are amphibious habits, and they also depend on the air. And the rough skin surface, the body hair, and the grooming habits of some species increase the possibility of oil contact, ingestion, and associated toxicological effects. These are some of the pictures show depicting us how oil spills are affecting the uh, the fauna of the seafloor. And you can see that various beaches, they are also being converted into places where we cannot handle it. Now, how does when an oil spill is happening, there are two different aspects what we need to do. Of course, you need to clean the oil from the shore as well as you need to clean the from the water also. It's just the reverse what has been written here. This is the water and this is the shore. So in either of the cases, you need to remove the oil from it. So what are the different ways that which we use for removing or to combat with the oil spills at the sea? There are different ways. The first one which we can have is, which we can see here, is the burning one. It is called the in situ burning. This is a method of setting fire of the freshly spilled oil, usually while still floating on the water surface. So what you do is first you put a boom. A boom is nothing but a long floating barrier, so that the spilled oil will not spread to a further distance. So that a boom is being applied over there, and the boom will be such a way that it will be fire resistant, and you will burn it at that particular space. That is one strategy at which you can have. The second one is chemical dispersion. You can see here an aeroplane is going, and an aeroplane is applying certain chemicals to remove the oil from the water surface by breaking the oil into small droplets. We know certain emulsifiers and all that are there, which would break them, which would make them what? Oil is not soluble in water. To make them soluble or to disperse them, you can add some chemicals. That is the dispersion through that way. Then another method is by skimming. Skimming is achieved with boats equipped with a floating skimmer designed to remove the thin layers of the oil from the surface, often with the help of booms. So there will be a boat, and across the boat, there will be certain booms will be applied, and in between that you can see these red color things. Okay, with that these are the what? These are the booms. Okay, this is so that no, not that, these are the skimmers. Okay, these skimmers are that which will absorb all the oil from the surface. So hope you know what is a boom. The boom is a very simple and a popular method for controlling oil spill, and the equipment called the containment booms act like a fence to prevent the oil from further spreading or floating away, and they are effective only when the oil is in one spot, and it works when the spill is accessible within a few hours of taking place. Otherwise, the oils will become too large to manage, and it cannot be successfully employed under rough sea waves, high wind velocities, or fluctuating tides. So, hope so you remember what is a boom. This is a boom which has been depicted over here. This is another picture showing you a boom. And now let's talk about the skimmers. What are the skimmers? Just have a look at this. These are the skimmer. This is the process of skimming. Okay, now what's happening in a skimmer? Once the oil has been confined by using oil booms, the skimmers or the oil scoops can be developed onto boats to remove the contaminants from the water surface. They are in fact machines usually designed to suck up the oil from the water surface like a vacuum cleaner, and they are used to physically separate the oil from the water so that it can be collected and processed for reuse. Now, if you can have a look over here, these are the skimmers, which will suck out the oil from the water. And skimmers can be used to effectively recover most of the spent oil, so it is economically viable also. But you can see that the presence of debris poses a major roadblock to this, because in a vacuum cleaner, everything, regardless of oil, everything is getting vacuumed. So when you are using a skimmer, most often what happens, it gets clogged easily because the water bodies are not only containing oil, but it would contain different things also. The next method is by using sorbents. What are sorbents? You know the word adsorbent. So seeing the way, similarly to that, we have the sorbents. So sorbents are materials that soak up liquids by either absorption or by adsorption. That is pulling in through pores or forming a layer on the surface. These are the two differences between absorption and adsorption. That is, only if it is pulling it inside, it is called absorption. But if it is just pulled only onto the surface of a substance, you call it as adsorption. And both of these properties can be employed to make the uh, process of cleanup much easier. And you can use different things. Now, for example, hay, peat, moss, straw, vermiculate. These are all sorbents which can be used. Now, these are some pictures of, so it, see, you cannot use it in the water bodies, but on the shores, probably you can use these sorbents to absorb the oil. And the oil can be recovered, and this prevents the wastage and further pollution. And after the absorption procedure, the absorbent materials must be effectively retrieved. And of course, this is a difficult task, and it may prove to be worse if it has been ignored. And the sorbents after absorption become heavier because they will absorb the oil onto them, and about 3 to 15 times of their weight is absorbed onto them. And as a result, now, for example, if you are putting them into the water, they may even sink, and it would be difficult for us to retrieve it if it goes to the sea bottom. So, it is most effective in small spills and also to manage the leftover traces of a larger spill. So, of course, the other method which we already discussed is burning in situ. And about you can remove 98% of an oil spill, which is more than the other methods. This is another depiction also of it. The one which I had already discussed, the spraying of chemicals so that the oil gets dispersed. And now let's move on to the next method called the bioremediation, which is a hot topic of interest. Now, what do you mean by, see, regardless of all the other methods, like you have physical methods of skimming, you have booms used, you have burning in situ, you have spraying and all that. But all of these are methods which can be dealt with when it comes to small areas. But what if it is being spread to a larger area, and when you have to deal with a large quantity of oil spill? So in such cases, the bioremediation plays a very important role. Now, what is bioremediation? Bioremediation is the use of microorganisms, fungi, or a bacteria to decompose the pollutants into the simpler compounds. In the previous class also, I had mentioned to you what is bioremediation. So, as a result of bioremediation, we expect that the microbes will utilize these pollutants and convert them into carbon dioxide, which is the simplest form of carbon, and other compounds as well as water will be released. And so the prime goal is to create an optical environment for the microbes to degrade the pollutants. And bioremediation is a very cost-effective alternative, but you should remember that it takes a lot of time for or it's a slow process, and compared to the other methods, it takes more time uh, to get the bioremediation to be done. But the results of it would be what? Would be, of course, satisfactory after the period of time. And another advantage is that the microbes can completely destroy the toxic hydrocarbon compounds, and they do not just transfer them to another area. That is, the organisms itself will grow and will degrade the hydrocarbon at the in situ condition itself. And now, how can you enhance the bioremediation? Bioremediation can be enhanced by making the environment favorable for the organism's growth. Now, it can be in different ways. As we have mentioned earlier, the addition of oxygen. You had seen bioventing and biosparging and all as technical things, extensions of these. Or you can add certain nutrients onto it, into the environment. This comes under the process of called biostimulation, where you will add the nutrients into it, and so that the organisms are stimulated, the organisms capable of utilizing the hydrocarbon, the microorganisms, will be promoted to grow. And then you might also add certain other electron acceptors, alternate electron acceptors, that's to promote the growth and degradation. Or you might add certain surfactants. Now, surfactants are nothing but these are what? Substances which will help the oil to be what? Now, to remove oil, you wash your hand with soap. The same way, a surfactant is nothing but a soap. So, by the addition of surfactants, what happens? You will be able to, the insoluble oil becomes soluble, and it can be utilized by the microorganisms in a better manner. Then, in some cases, you can also add good microbes or oil eating microbes, as I had mentioned to you in the case of Chakrabarti's bacteria in the previous sessions, where oil eating bacteria of Pseudomonas putida was being employed for the process of oil removal. So, different organisms, it might be a single organism, or it might be a consortium of organism, or it might be even a genetically modified organism which is capable of utilizing oils at a better manner. They might be added into the at the spot of the oil spill, so that the process of bio-augmentation does happen. Now let's, what is bio-augmentation? Bio-augmentation is the addition of microbes to supplement the current population to degrade oil and other hydrocarbons. You should remember, keep in your mind, whenever a oil spill happens, the more chance of it is to occur in a place where the oil is previously handled. For example, if you have a rig, oil has been handled over there, or in such cases, what happens? Naturally itself, there would be lots of hydrocarbon degrading organisms in that particular environment. But without to enhance the remediation of it, might be when an oil spill happens, what happens? You will utilize certain other microbes which are capable of degrading oil and put it over there in that particular environment, and enable that to grow. And you can see that about 70 genera of microbes are known to degrade hydrocarbons. And so the best of the ones which are capable of degrading oil will be put over there. That's what I told you, a consortium. A consortium is a group, is a mixture of various organisms which are being grown together. It would be of different nature. Now, sometimes you can prepare a consortium to degrade oil, or sometimes you can prepare a consortium to degrade pesticides. Depending upon that, what is your aim, like that you can prepare a different consortium of organisms, microorganisms. So, and the degradation of oil will only occur if the requirements, if the other requirements are also met. Now, for example, available nutrients and proper environment and temperature, all these all should be maintained in such a way, should be made proper, so that the process of bio-augmentation will become effective to remove the. And these are some of the organisms. You cannot like, you cannot consolidate and say like these are the lists of organisms, because organisms are completely evolving. We are finding out new microorganisms which are capable of degrading hydrocarbons, and among them the members, bacteria members, now Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Pseudomonas putida. These are all known very well for its oil degrading ability, mainly because they have certain plasmids, okay, plasmids which code for their resistance. And these are all, these are bacteria which can naturally itself produce lots of surfactants called the biosurfactants, which would aid in the what removal of oil from the water surfaces. And you can see bacillus also. Bacillus is also a bacteria which can produce what a biosurfactant, as well as, so that plays an important role. So not only the enzymes that have been needed for the degradation, but even sometimes the other components. Now, for example, I told you about the surfactants. The surfactants which have been produced by this bacteria will also aid in its removal of oil spills from the water bodies. Then another thing is biostimulation. Biostimulation is nothing. Here you add nutrients to aid the growth of the indigenous microbe population. What do you mean by indigenous microbe population? All the microbes which are already been present in the water bodies, they are referred to as an indigenous microbe population. And so to promote their oil degrading ability, you can add lots of nutrients. Now, for example, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, oxygen and water. And the temperature is also, of course, you can control it only to some extent, I do know that, but the nutrients are being promoted so that the indigenous are being given, so that the indigenous microorganisms are promoted to grow. And now, for example, For 1 gram of hydrocarbon spill, you require about 150 mg of nitrogen and 30 mg of phosphorus. And commonly used water soluble nutrient products include potassium nitrate, uh, sodium nitrate, ammonium nitrate, and dipotassium hydrogen phosphate, which will promote the growth of the indigenous microorganisms which are capable of degrading the oil. Now, when you are adding these nutrients onto it, you should also check the rate of the release. Of course, you cannot randomly put as you wish. You should also consider the washout effect, because it's a massive water body where it will be carried out to the sea and take some nutrients with it. You have to consider that also. And the type of the nutrients which are being required are also being needed. So coming to um, Bio-augmentation, it is less expensive and it's a natural process because you're adding some nutrients also, and it does not disrupt the surrounding ecosystem, and it does not require moving the oil to another location, and it continues to improve the conditions also. That is true, but bio-augmentation is not very effective, and because of course I had mentioned to you about the washing out effect, where the nutrients will be diluted and it will be carried away. And so the success depends upon the proper nutrients and the environmental conditions. And in order to evaluate the results of it, we take some time. And to see the results, it takes time. So often it might not be the same. Effective in a true sense. Now, let me just, before going away and ending up this topic, I would like to bring your attention to the Exxon Valdez oil spill, which happened in 1989 when a tanker hit the big Bly Reef in the northern Prince William Sound. Okay, and here when this oil tanker was being hit, what happened? Almost 20 percentage of the oil in that particular tanker was being left into the sea, about 42 million liters. And you should see that it was not only affecting into the thing, it went into the shoreline also, and almost a natural effect. It had a very drastic effect on the on the animals over there. And these are some just pictures which I just gave a Google search of this incident, and I got the thing. So this is quite evident that that oil spill had affected the life of the aquatic fauna as well as the flora to a drastic level. So how did we try to deal with this oil spill then? There were different methods what we did. First was we tried burning of the oil using a fire resistant boom, and then after that the use of skimmers and booms, that also mechanical methods were being tried, and also chemical dispersants were also being tried. And you can see that all these methods, but when it deals with small areas, these were quite effective. But in the case of Exxon Valdez oil spill, it was a large area, and all these methods were not sufficient enough to uh, deal with the menace which was being caused by this oil spill. So then that time, that was the first time, in fact, in the Environmental Protection Agency gave us the permission to use of fertilizers. Okay, so that the indigenous hydrocarbon degrading organisms were being promoted to grow. So this was in fact in this case, it was considered to be as a laboratory. Now, for example, such instances of so much oil spill happening was the first time in the world. So, Exxon Valdez oil spill was taken as a laboratory condition, and since there was no other option regardless of other physical and mechanical methods, the use of fertilizers was being permitted. And as a result, what happened? The indigenous hydrocarbon degrading organisms were being increased about 10,000 fold times, and the oil degradation had started in this case. And we could find that the process of biostimulation was being effective over there, and within 10 to 14 days after the application of the nutrients, the Exxon Valdez oil spill was being found to be treated very effectively. And this showed that by using bioremediation, it not only worked at cleaning up the oil, but it also worked very quickly, in a sense, when you are dealing with a large amount of oil. And with the success of bioremediation after the first summer of its use, the Environmental Protection Agency supported the further use of bioremediation on the contaminated beaches. And of course, some research is still being carried out, so how you can enhance the remediation. And another instance, I would also like to share a paper with you, which was being published in 2011, Oil Biodegradation and Bioremediation, a tale of two worst oil spills in the US history. Okay, I think it's a quite interesting one where uh, a comparison of the Exxon Valdez spill in 1989 and the BP Deepwater Horizon spill in 2010 is being carried out. And you can see that in both the cases, bioremediation has been used, and we can conclude that in you can just go through it. It's quite interesting to read it. I just shared the article for you so that uh, you can further refer to it. In both the cases, the process of biostimulation is being carried out, and the indigenous oil degrading microorganisms are being found to be promoted. Unlike the higher organisms that are adversely affected by oil spills, the microorganisms are able to consume the petroleum hydrocarbons, and these oil degrading indigenous microorganisms play a significant role in reducing the overall environmental effect of both the Exxon Valdez and the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spills. That's what the paper reports. So, hope so you got a better idea of bioremediation of oil spills. With this, we come to an end. Thank you for your attention.